Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Some people might still come in later. That's always the case with webinars. But good to have you. Thank you for joining us for this new episode of the EPRID webinar series. EPRID stands for the European Platform Against Religious Intolerance and Discrimination. And EPRID is an interfaith platform of organizations defending and promoting freedom of religion or belief. More information about our platform can be found on our website, EPRID.eu. My name is Arie de Pater. I'm representing the European Evangelical Alliance here in Brussels, and I'm a member of the board of coordinators of EPRID. Today, we will focus on the protection of houses of worship in the context of the EU-funded project Safer and Stronger Communities in Europe. It is my privilege to welcome our guests today for this episode, Dr. Ophir Revach of the European Jewish Congress, Ron Eichhorn of the European Buddhist Union, and Iman and Atta of Faith Matters. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome here. And of course, a warm welcome to my co-host, Elizabeta Kitanovic, of the Conference of European Churches, and also a member of the EPRID Board of Coordinators. Elizabeta, can you please introduce the SASCE project for us?
Thank you, Arie. The European Commission has published the document Action Plan to support the protection of public spaces. Synagogues, churches, and mosques are part of the public spaces. SASCE project is one of the first interfaith projects funded by the European Commission. And the primary aim of this project, which is funded by the Internal Security Police Fund, is to increase security in and around places of worship, as well as within and between religious communities. This project builds on general best practices for security in public spaces, as recommended by the European Commission. And also, it further relies on the knowledge and expertise of local religious communities and security groups. The SASCE Consortium has developed a variety of materials, such as videos, brochures, guidances for the law enforcement, guides for the worshippers, and guide for the religious leadership, as well as other training material. Based on this material, the SASCE Consortium will train the trainers and raise security awareness related to the worship places, for example, by disseminating guides in and around religious communities and as well sharing it with law enforcement. In order to reach the goal of resilience among religious communities throughout Europe, the SASCE Consortium submits regular reports to the European Commission about incidents that relate to religious buildings and places of worship, as well as attacks on religious individuals and religious communities. The consortium has committed to run about 100 of training sessions by 2023 and to build a coordinators network to report human rights violations and security threats on a monthly basis. For more information about the project, please visit sasce.eu.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeta, for this summary of the project. So it seems fair to say that the European Commission takes the safety and protection of houses of worship most seriously. Partners in the SASCE project have to submit a report every month listing security threats to their communities and their property. Mrs. Iman, your organization, Faith Matters, is dealing with anti-Muslim hatred. What are the current trends that you see from your reports?
Thank you for having us, and good afternoon, everyone. I think, may I start just by following up, Arie, on what you said about the European Commission is taking religious communities, the freedom of religion and belief, and places of worship seriously. It comes under the fundamental rights, the fundamental human rights that we all actually have, that we all carry and we all value. And one of the things that I think has been happening recently is an attack on the different identities, on the different religions that we all have or not have. So individuals that come from different faith backgrounds, individuals with no faith, individuals with sexual orientation, with different gender identities, and many other identities have been subjected to attack. It's due to really the rise of the far right, extremism. It's due to sometimes trigger events like terrorist attacks. It's due to media headlines, political discourse, and obviously social media that has been one of the leading factors in pouring hate towards different minority communities since the social media platform started in 2006, 2007. But if I focus on the Muslim communities and really what we see within our work and what are the trends in terms of anti-Muslim hatred. So the wind has been blowing on anti-Muslim hatred, unfortunately, in the last few years, again, driven by the factors that I mentioned. But one of the things that we've been seeing is that normalization of hate, that abusive behavior that happens on an ongoing basis, that language, abusive language that is being used to perpetuate Muslim communities as terrorists, that language that always blames Muslim communities for refugees coming in for migration, that language that always attacks, aligns, Muslim communities with any terrorist attack that takes place in Europe or in the world. And I'll give you a very simple example. Christchurch happened in New Zealand. It was an attack that was driven by far-right terrorism. It was an attack where 51 Muslim people got murdered. It was an attack on Muslim communities. And despite the fact that it was an attack on Muslim communities, there was a backlash of hate on Muslim communities following that attack. We recorded within our monitoring project in Telmama a 692% increase of reports coming into us of anti-Muslim hatred towards Muslim communities following that attack, a week following that attack. And if you look at really the manifesto, if you look at the drivers that have driven that far-right terrorist to commit that attack, you would see that he does not just dislike Muslim communities. You would see that he dislikes Jewish communities. You see that he dislike any minority communities. So the individuals that drive such hatred, whether it's anti-Muslim hatred, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's anti-Buddhism, whether it's anti-Christian hate, are individuals that do not like any other communities, are individuals that seek to create further division across communities, are individuals that manipulate some of the political discourse that is out there, and are individuals that actually promote divisive and hatred language online. And how really do these attacks manifest? So I mentioned that mainly they're driven by abusive behavior in nature, but more and more we're seeing attacks on places of worship, attacks on mosques, attacks on faith schools. We're seeing vandalism. We've seen arson attacks recently taking place in places across Europe, as well as in the UK on mosques. But equally, one of the things that we see that individuals that seek to maliciously go out there and continue to send out malicious communication to mosques and harass mosques and places of worship on an ongoing basis tend to plan this for a long time. An example of which is a recent letter and USB stick that was sent to mosques in the UK. An individual took the time to write 300 letters. I'm talking about handwritten letters. You're talking about 300, not one, not 10, not 30, 300 individually handwritten letters alongside USB sticks that he downloaded some material on that is driven by anti-Muslim hatred and decided to post them to mosques in the UK. The same issue we've seen actually that the same narrative of anti-Muslim literature as well has been shared with mosques in the US. So again, the thing is not limited to a certain area or region. It goes beyond, it's an international phenomenon. And equally, we see these things happening and some of the literature as well being sent to synagogues, to churches, to Buddhist temples. And it's something that is worrying to see because individuals are driven to actually sit behind a screen or sit at home, write hateful content, and decide to target individuals from different minority backgrounds and specifically faith backgrounds to actually blame them for any migration or refugees that are coming into the different countries. So I think we need to look at issues around anti-Muslim hatred specifically towards Muslim communities and in the context of Muslim communities, but equally in the context of minority faith communities that are all being subjected to these attacks.
Thank you, Iman, for these very valuable facts about anti-Muslim hatred, and it just shows that we need to work more on this issue. We turn to our next speaker, and this is Dr. Ophir. Thank you so much for being today with us. You represent the European Jewish Congress, and my question is, can you please explain why you wanted to launch and to lead this project, because you are our leading applicant, and why is it that SASCE project about safer and stronger communities in Europe is important for European Jewish communities?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Elizabeta and Arie, for organizing this important webinar, and to thank my colleague Ron and Iman for participating. I think that our community start to protect themselves against terror attack, I think 60 or 70 years ago. And when I'm speaking about security, I'm speaking about technological and physical means, and of course about with the guards. And during those 70 years, we suffer from a lot from terror attack or from anti-Semitism incident in the place of worship or outside of the place of worship, and we were prepared for that. I think from 2015, we could see a big change. I think for the first time, we start to see a lot of attacks, not only against our Jewish communities, also against the Muslim community and against the Christian community or Buddhist or other faith communities. In one of my first meetings with my president, Dr. Moshe Kantor, he asked me to see how we can share our experience and our knowledge with that to support other faith, the security of other faith communities. And I think I start a few years to do it, and thanks to SASCE project and thanks to the European Commission, we managed, we have to have this important and a beautiful project. For us, this project is important, I would say, from three reasons. One reason, it's a Jewish culture, to support not only our community, to support also other faith communities. Another thing, I think that in the last 60 years, and I'm saying that often, we ask from the government and from the police and from the law enforcement, we ask more security, we ask more policemen around our buildings. And now I think we have the possibility to give and to share and to support other faith organizations. And I think, and the last thing, I think that if we want, I think today it's not enough to protect only one faith community, because we saw that the threat is against all the citizens, and the attackers are coming from all the society. It's not, can be our neighbor, can be your friend. And I think it's not enough today to teach and to train one faith community. And I think it's very important to create and to increase the security awareness of all the society. And by doing that, and by sharing this with all our citizens, with all the society, we immediately, of course, we are going to increase the security also around the Jewish communities. So I think these three reasons for us is very, very important, and we are very happy to lead and to be part of this project. And I really hope to see a better society, a safer society, and I think that we need to see how we can educate all the citizens, not only the Jewish, also the others as citizens, to see how they can increase the security awareness, how they can work better with the law enforcement, how they can update if they see something or they hear something suspicious, how they can update the law enforcement, and like that to be much more relevant for the security. The security today, it's not only to prepare the guards or to have more camera or more wall. The security today start and maybe finish also with the security awareness. So for that, we must work together, all the faith communities, all the faith organizations, we must work together with the support of the European Commission to increase the security awareness of all the society. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that cooperative spirit here in the consortium of the different faith groups working together. So thank you for your leadership in that. For the audience, if you have questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Submit your question, and we will come back to your questions later. Let's now move on to Ron Eichhorn. Welcome here as well. You are representing the European Buddhist Union. I do not hear that much about attacks on Buddhist temples or anti-Asian hatred. So can you enlighten me and share a little bit from your experience?
Thank you. Thank you, Arie. Thank you, Elizabeta, for having me. And I'm very happy to be on this panel with Ophir and Iman. Yes, as you say, it's not much we hear about attacks against Buddhist communities or temples. And a big part of the reason for this is that it's just not reported. A lot of things that happened online or physically against individuals or ordained people or temples in the Buddhist communities in Europe was just not reported because the people think it doesn't matter, it just happened, or they have another reason. So we found when we started this project and we started to ask questions to our membership and our communities that indeed there are quite some attacks that happened in the past, but people didn't bother to mention them. And a lot of it has to do with visibility. Many Buddhists that practice Buddhism in Europe look like everybody else. So it's very difficult for a possible attacker to see what this person is. But people who have an Asian background, who come from an Asian country and were immigrants or children of immigrants, or people who wear robes like I do today, they are more visible. So we found that if there's a temple that is a visible Buddhist temple, or there's a community which is predominantly Asian, or if they're ordained people who wear robes even on the street, then attacks do happen for several reasons. And as Iman pointed out before, the targets of attacks by people becomes more and more random. It could be really anybody. This is why this project is so important, because we are together in it. And I think, as Ophir also mentioned, the one very important aspect is that we are together. And we are safer together, and we can do something about security of not just religious communities, but the society as a whole. Together we can do a lot about it. If everybody pays attention, if everybody keeps in mind that hate speech is the start of violence, and this is really something that happens a lot nowadays, and people just do it, and it doesn't have many consequences, but that's always the start. I think no violent attack will happen without it. So we have to stand together, observe it, report it, and do something against it. And we, as Buddhists, we thought really before this project that we would not be so concerned. But we found in this 1 year, since we started to prepare it, that that's not the case. And just recently I heard that the Dalai Lama came under verbal attack on online channels because he recommended to be vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus. And that's reason enough for many people to be aggressive. So really, that anything could happen, and then the people would choose Buddhist temples or Buddhists as the center of their violence or their attacks. And so we have to be aware of it, and we have to do something against it before it happens. In our case, we are aware, and we raise the awareness, and we found that most of our communities are very interested in it. I was actually surprised, because I thought that most people would say, yeah, but we are not concerned. We never have any incidents. But really, it's among the 20 projects that we are running in the European Buddhist Union now on many different topics. This is the most, the one which has the most people involved in, and the most people who want to hear something about it. So it's not something that we have to promote too much. And I'm happy about it because the people already have this kind of awareness. And so again, it's a very important project, the SASCE project, not only for Buddhists, not only for religious communities, but really for the society, I feel.
Thank you, Ron. The question for all three guests. From your input to this webinar, we could understand that the attacks of the houses of worship have increased. How do you explain that? And do you expect more attacks now that we are still in the COVID-19 pandemic? So let's start with Ophir.
First, I would like to continue what Ron mentioned before, and the good question of Arie, that, we're in the media normally, they're speaking about attack against a Jew, but when we start this project, I discover, and for me, I'm many years in this field, I discovered that the Muslim communities and the Christian community are suffering and are facing a lot of attacks. Thousands of attacks in Europe that nobody speak about it, nobody mentioned it, nobody even knows about it. And I was really, even with all my experience, I was really surprised to discover that. And another thing that we saw, that we're speaking about to protect the place of worships, but it's not only, we're speaking only in and outside the place of worship, because we saw in the last month, we saw a lot of attack, what we call in the soft target, in the street, in the supermarket, in the public place. So I think by increasing the security awareness of the people who are coming to the place of worship, immediately we are going to increase the security awareness of all society, and by that we can have a better security. We saw now in the corona, we saw a lot of criminals, not only attack, we saw attack, also criminal attack. People who are attacking Jewish people, not because they are anti-Semites, because they want to take them the wallet or to steal them or to build them because they are angry or because they're vaccinated, they don't want to vaccinate it. So we saw a lot of attack against our community members since the beginning of coronavirus, because the criminality, and I believe that is going to be, and we talk about it, we are going to see it more and more. We saw the increasing of the attack in the social media, because people were with the lockdown, many people were at home, so they had the time to be active more in the social media. But as soon as the people will have the right and the possibility to have a demonstration or to go to the street again, I'm sure that you are going to see more and more attack against all the faith communities, especially the place of worship and the people who are wearing a religious motive like a clothes or like a hat or like other things. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Arie?
Anyone else who wants to respond to that same question? Yeah, Iman, go ahead.
I think maybe just following up on what Ophir has said, let's not forget that during the pandemic, when everyone was working from home, the consumption of social media websites, consumption of social media news and capturing that information, that unfortunately has spread a lot of misinformation and fake news about different minority communities, has enabled individuals to capture and absorb that information. And eventually we know that the attacks that take place on a street level, what we call the offline world, are actually connected to what's happening in the online world, in the hate speech, on social media platforms. So individuals that would see minority communities are actually abiding to lockdown guidelines. You'll have far-right stalkers or extremist stalkers that will say, no, Muslim communities are actually being super spreaders of the virus. They're actually going to the places of worship, despite the fact places of worship being closed. You'll see them attacking the Jewish communities and promoting conspiracy theories about the Jewish communities. So you'll see a lot that is taking place in the online world, that as soon as you start going out to the physical world, what we call the offline world, individuals that we know are driven by extremist narrative, individuals that are absorbing that fake misinformation online, will take action into their hands, and therefore, and hence will go and attack places of worship that relate to Muslim communities, that relate to Jewish communities or other faith communities. So I think we shouldn't undermine that while maybe we might go into another lockdown, depending on what happens in this world in the coming months, but the impact and the connection between the online world and the offline world exists quite significantly. And individuals who absorb material online eventually take action into their hands and go and attack communities on the street, as Ophir mentioned, whether it's in supermarkets, whether it's in malls, or attack places of worship because they visibly can see what that place of worship is and who it relates to as a faith. And then one of the things as well we should not forget is when an individual decides to attack a minority community, he will go for it, any minority community. So maybe the plan is to go and attack Jewish communities. Maybe they don't find access to Jewish synagogues. They will go and attack the next potential target of a minority community. And that's where I think when you mentioned Arie and you asked Ron about you don't have any reports or any insight in what happens to Buddhist temples, that doesn't mean that Buddhist temples are not subjected to attacks or hate, but not every single attack on a place of worship is reported in the media. And not every single attack on a place of worship is reported by even their own communities. And that's why SASCE comes in. It's to bring more awareness and give power and empower community leaders within the different faith institutions and within the different faith communities to come forward and report any attack, no matter how minor it is.
I'd also like to just say a few words. I think if you ask if the question is if the pandemic will produce more of these acts, I would think so. Yes, unfortunately. And as a Buddhist, I would say it's very easy to see that people who commit acts of violence or hate speech have an unbalanced mind. So the source of it is a mind which is not balanced. And of course, 2 years of pandemic will have a heavy toll on people who are already unstable. And I think that will not finish when the measures finish or when the lockdowns finish, that these 2 years we will feel them for many years to come in many ways, and definitely also in the mindset of people. And so I think people who were already unstable, who already had a tendency to radicalize, these last 2 years gave them more opportunities for this. And so I think in line, I think what Ophir and Iman said, that will happen more. It will increase and it will be more random, as we also said.
Yeah. Well, it links quite well. You mentioned underreporting of incidents, and that's I think all three of you kind of said that it's not always making headlines, and that links to a question from Anders Gardegaard in the Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to add yours. Is it possible to access a list of holy places that have been attacked or threatened in EU countries during recent years and the consequences of such atrocities? So that is an interesting question that's very much linked to this project. So would you like to explain or answer, any of you?
Yes, first I would like, I think I mentioned that before, that, I would like to give you an example to understand the number of the attack against faith communities. If I take the attack against the Muslim community in Iman, I'm sure she knows better than me. In 2016, it was more than 1,000 attacks against the Muslim community, more than 1,000. The number is unbelievable. In our community, in our Jewish communities, we are making once a year, our president, we are publishing the attack, the anti-Semitism, the annual report of anti-Semitism. And I think when you see the number, it's really unbelievable to understand the number. We are publishing that. You can enter to Cantor Center in Tel Aviv and you can see exactly the number and the attack and the incidents, etc. But there's something that we must understand. The attack, it's not only against the building. The gun, it's against the people. It's against our community member in or outside the place of worships. And like we said before, like Ron mentioned before, some people, they don't want to complain. Some people, they don't trust the authority that they will do something. So the figures, they are much more than what we know. And the number, it's unbelievable. I think each faith community are facing more than in a normal year. I don't speak about the Corona time. I think in the normal time, more than 1,000 attacks against the building. Of course, we have, all of us, I think, we have the list of all the attacks and we can share it. But the goal of this project, this is exactly the goal of the project, to see how we can share in our website and this is what we are doing in the monthly report, to share all the attack against all the faith community. Like that, if someone we want to know what happened from the first, when we start the project, from the 1st of April this year, you can find in our report the not only the number, but also the what happened and the incident against our faith communities.
Thank you, Ophir. Iman.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and it might be good actually that we create a list of holy places that have been attacked, and we put together as part of SASCE, specifically in the past 5 years, I would say, because there's a lot that has been happening in the past 5 years across Europe. But answering the second part of the question, which is as important as the first part, which is the consequences of such atrocities, I think yes, it is an attack on a place of worship, but as Ophir just mentioned, an attack of a place of worship is an attack on the identity of that community or those communities. And I think that speaks a lot when you talk today about the younger generation, that actually relates a lot to identity, to ensuring their identity is stamped. It relates a lot to them when an attack is happening on their place of worship, even though they might not be religious, they might not be even attending their place of worship, but it is an attack on their identity. And one of the things that unfortunately we've been seeing on the back of attacks taking place on places of worship is really the impact on social cohesion across communities. It is how communities tend to become more isolated, how communities tend to feel that maybe the wider society is not really caring about them or is not standing for them, and hence the importance of a project like SASCE that bring faith communities across together to stand in solidarity and bring awareness to all communities about the importance of tackling hate and ensuring the safety and security of everyone. And I think the other thing that I think we need as well to bear in mind is when individuals feel that there has been an attack on their place of worship, when they feel that this is an ongoing thing and they feel sometimes that authorities are not dealing with matters accordingly, there is as well a feeling of a letdown within the communities and society and the authorities that you live in. So I think we need to look at attacks on places of worship across the different and within the different faith communities, and look at each and every case, look at the drivers of such attacks. And let's not forget as well, that attacks on places of worship sometimes are not an attack that has come from a minority within our society. It might have come from even a minority within our own community. So it could be an attack from a minority of a Muslim community towards another minority of a Muslim community, or a minority of a Christian community towards another minority of a Christian community. And that is something as well that we need to look at. And therefore, we need to look at each and every case of an attack of a place of worship and really look at what the drivers are, look at the issues and the impact, not just on the place of worship, but on the communities as a whole, the ones that are impacted, but on the wider society, and address and assess what needs to happen in order to prevent the impact and the corrosion of social cohesion.
Thank you, Iman. We have the following questions from our colleague Hans Knut. He says the following: knowing that the media is prone to only publish what people want to hear, how interested do you feel the media is in reporting the destruction of religious property? In other words, is the media reporting accurately what is happening to religious property?
I think.
Go ahead.
I think we talk about. I think the media is presenting only what is good for the media. When how they're going to have more rating or more people to watch them or to buy publicity or etc. And like I said before, we see in our continent, in our little continent, each year thousands of attacks against place of worships. And the media is not mentioned that normally they don't open the news with that, only if it's something the people are dead or something that's extremely big, that with a lot of dead people or injured people. But besides that, there's a lot of attack against the people, against our community members, without there's no dead people, or it's not something big, but it's attack against the people. You know, that's what this I think one of the goals of this project, because the idea of the attacker is not to attack people like people or to attack the place of worship, because they want to change the society. That's what Iman said before. They want to change the society. They want society maybe with less tolerance, maybe with less religious symbol or other reason. So I think that we need to see what is the drive, like Iman said before, what is driving those people, and I think the media is not reflecting exactly the reality what happened in our places, and but I think that today we talk about it in the beginning. People that's what Ron said. More and more people understand the needs of the security. More people understand why they need to increase the awareness of the people, because the problem can happen everywhere. So one thing is the media, and the other thing is our community. And I think what we are doing with the social media, I think is very important, because what the official media, the TV or the radio or the newspaper are not mentioning, we can do it through our website or in the social media.
Thank you, Ophir. Ron, what about media reporting?
I think, yes. Well, I think Ophir is, of course, right that the media reports mostly what's interesting for them. But I think what would be good is a discourse about why these things happen, the things we already talked about, because that reflects our society and some things that are inherent in our society. And that would be a very good discourse, I think, to have. Because the people always feel that they are right if they have a hate speech, or if they have aggression, or if they start something violent. Normally, the people don't feel like they do something wrong. They feel it's their right to do it. It's what has to be done. That's exactly the thing that they should do, and so we have to point out these kind of things. And another thing, of course, is how we present it. When we had the workshop a few weeks ago, it became clear that people don't want to listen to or read bad news or things about insecurity or threats, and then they just turn away their attention to something else. So it's also the way that it is reported that will make a difference. But I think we have to look at the causes and the reasons and these trends in society and how we can stop that also. And that's going to be very, very important to reflect this in the media too.
Thank you. And Iman, what about Muslim communities? Is that accurately reported in the media when there are attacks?
So attacks on places of worship, when the media covers it in terms of attacks on religious institutions, is reported accordingly. But I think it's done solely by focusing on the attacks, i.e. we don't talk about drivers, we don't talk about issues that are impacting attacks on Muslim communities. So you can cover the attack that took place on Christchurch, or you can cover an arson attack on a mosque that takes place in Europe, but you don't talk about what is driving individuals to commit that attack, which reversely, if I talk about it, media headlines. So media headlines that actually keep on victimizing Muslim communities, keep on talking about Muslim communities as being terrorists, keep on highlighting issues around Muslim communities as being, and the ones that are changing the demographics of Europe, and many others, are the ones that are actually sometimes driving that hate on attacks of places of worship and Muslim communities. So I think when we talk about media coverage, it's as well our role and responsibility as organizations, as individuals, is to as well address some of the headlines that we see are perpetuating hate towards minority communities, including Muslim communities as well as others, in order to ensure there's a reflection and there's accountability to the headlines that media is promoting when attacks on places of worship happen, or attacks on any kind of community takes place.
Thank you.
So that is about, well, you already kind of hinted on the role of the media and also the role of society, because this project is first and foremost about reporting, making sure that we have a right picture of what is happening. But what can we as society or as individuals in society, what can we do to strengthen the security of places of worship or protect the religious minorities amongst us? Is that anything that you, from your experience, that you would recommend? Or
I think it's one of the most important topics in our project is to increase the security awareness of our community members. I think this is the key. Today, like we said before, we saw that nearly all the attacks in Europe done by European people, by local citizens. And by increasing the security awareness of our people, they can help and they can support the law enforcement. For example, if someone sees someone, his friend become more radical, or one of his friends want to make something, or one of the neighbors sees something suspicious, so he can call first. They need to understand that they must inform and they update immediately the law enforcement. It's something today, it's very important. And we gave in our 3 days training, we gave a few examples how the people can prevent and stop the attack just by update the law enforcement and the authority by suspicious people. So this is one thing that it's very important. The other thing, the security awareness. If somebody is going out to the supermarket, or is going to the football, or is going to the stadium, and he sees something suspicious, a car, or he sees a suspicious person, he can immediately call to the authority and tell them about the suspicious things. So I think that this is one of the things that we would like to train our community members how to behave and what is suspicious thing and what to do in case they see a suspicious thing or behaviors, and how they can work together with the law enforcement. We must understand that today with the law enforcement must and they would like to cooperate with us. They need our support and they need our help, and we must work together with them. This is the reason why we prepare a guide in our project, a guide for law enforcement. We want them to understand better our organization, our faith, our communities, and we want to have a better cooperation with them. I think it's very important. It's very important for everybody. And I would like to say something that Hans mentioned in his remark, that the attack before, the attacker used to attack a symbol of a symbol like a police, like a building of the government. And now the people are attacking easy target, easy as what we call the soft target. So if somebody wants to attack because he's angry, because he wants to fight against the democratic system, because he wants to fight against our values. So he before used to attack a policeman or used to attack a government building. Now they're attacking what we call the soft target, the easy target. The easy target today is a place of worship. It's easy target. Most of them are not protected. Most of them, it's easy. The door are open. They can go easily and they can attack. So for them, it's easy target to them. And by attacking the place of worship, they're attacking our values. They're attacking our democratic because they want to change this system.
Yeah, so you start the awareness raising within your community, but then once again, what is the role of wider society? Is there any role for us? We discussed the role of the media in reporting, but also for society. Iman?
Just following up from what Ophir has said, I think an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Yeah.
It's very simple and very straightforward. And I think when we see Jewish communities being attacked, our role is to stand in solidarity with the Jewish communities, to actually start addressing issues and talk about issues that are impacting Jewish communities, stand in solidarity against the rise of anti-Semitism. Equally, the same thing if it happens against the Christian communities or the Buddhist communities or any other communities. I think awareness raising comes a long way, and being aware of your surroundings comes a long way. Understanding what a suspicious object looks like is important. Looking around and checking within your own neighborhoods, you might have different places of worship, and you might be walking around and seeing a suspicious car moving around that. So even alerting authorities around this is important, because yes, it might be an attack of another community, but it's an attack on all of us. That attack is not going to just impact Jewish communities or Christian communities or Buddhist communities or Muslim communities. It's going to impact us all. It's an attack on our democracy. It's an attack on our core values, but it's an attack as well on really what we all strive to have: a free society that is free from violence, free from extremism, where everyone is able to go to their places of worship freely. So I think one of the things that we need to look at in terms of awareness raising, in terms of people being understand their surroundings, in terms of people being there as upstanders against hate when they see it. So you might see someone that, I don't know, is trying to throw something at a synagogue or at a church, one reporting it, but equally you can reach out as well to those other communities that sometimes you might have not spoken to at all. You might have not engaged with the Christian community or with the Christian church in your own area. Reaching out to the Christian church, checking they're okay, checking if there's anything that we can do as different communities supporting each other. We have many feasts across the year, the calendar year, that go across the whole different faiths. And sometimes it's all about knowing what's happening on that day in that Jewish community or in that Christian community. Why are there too many people outside the place of worship? Is there something that I need to be aware of? Is there something me as someone who lives in the neighborhoods can do to ensure the safety of the communities that are out there? And lastly, the one thing that I started with is solidarity. I think, and this is one of the things that I think is a strength of this project, is communities coming together from different backgrounds to say no to hate, no to racism, and no to attacks on places of worship. It's me putting myself in the shoe of a Jewish person who's being attacked on a daily basis on anti-Semitism. It's me putting my shoe in the place of a Buddhist person who's being attacked because they practice Buddhism. It's me putting the shoe of a Christian person who's being attacked, or she's being attacked because of their Christian identity. It's understanding what other minority communities are going through and standing firmly together with them in their fight and flight against intolerance.
Just a few words, because Ophir and Iman said really about everything. But I think it's also important, apart from having awareness about what's going on and the spirit that we are together, courage is another important thing, because a lot of people see things, but they don't have the courage to act. We've seen many things when we had this workshop about attacks that were carried out and nobody bothered or had the courage actually to say something or to call the police or to step in. And I think we can do a lot, but we have to see it and then also act on it. And that's important too.
Thank you. We have one question more in the chat, again from Hasnod, who is very much interested in media. So he says the following: religions has become less popular in the past decades. How can we help the media understand that an attack on houses of worship is an attack on all core values of democracy and not just an attack on that religion? Ophir?
I think that we talked about it before, all of us, we talked about it before, and we said that now to those days, the attack, all the attack against the place of worship, it's because it's against, even if the attack against the Jew, it's against all society. It's not only against the Jew or Muslim or the Christian, it's against all society, but also it's against our democratics, our life, our values. It's not, and the attack against place of worship, it's only because it's a soft target, because it's easy target. So we saw before, even now, if it's difficult for the attacker to attack the place of worship, he's attacking in the supermarket. And if it's difficult for him, he's attacking in the public place, in the street. So the attacker today are looking for easy target. And by increasing the security of a place of worship, we can have a better security in those places, and we can push the attacker not to attack those places and to go to another, not to attack at all, or to attack other places. But like we said before, the attack against place of worship, it's attack against all society.
Anyone else would like to respond to that question? Ron?
I think what we are doing here is already a good and an important step, because what people normally think is that the religions are for themselves and they do their own thing. Everybody thinks they are the best. And well, what we also see is a lot of conflicts we have in the world, and we had in the history, were between religions also. So people see that as very separate. And I think we have to work hard. And this is something we do here also, to stand together and to not draw red lines and borders, but to build bridges and to show what we have in common. And that really actually all our core values are the same. And we have to stand together, shoulder by shoulder, on this. And I think this will give a different image to society and also to the media. So I think that's very important.
Thank you. Iman, on this question?
I think to add, in terms of what Ophir and Ron have said, I think the only thing maybe that we've missed in what we're talking about is education. I think one of the things that we miss that really, I mean, sometimes we need to educate the media as we need to educate ourselves, as we need to educate other communities to break those barriers, to really understand that stereotypes that sometimes people make up or come with or feel that they know about other communities are there to be challenged. And I think in terms of the media and how to be able to ensure that the media understands that when a place of worship is being attacked, it's an attack on all of us, is really looking how the impact on communities happens. I think when an attack on a synagogue happens, Muslim communities start worrying that there's an attack on a mosque that's going to happen. Christian communities start getting worried that an attack on a church might happen. And it's about really looking at collectively how these communities can come together to protect each other, but equally stand in solidarity with each other.
I would like to, with your permission, to mention something more. I wanted to speak about education, but Iman already talked about it. And I think that the security, it's not only guards and the cameras and the wall. Security starts by education, by tolerance. And I think by the people understand better the others. And I think if we manage to create this atmosphere and to work with people and to come all of us together, I think the message is very important also.
Yeah, well, I think we have time for one last question that just came in from Georgios, and that's very much related to the point of education. Do you think that the fact there are less and less religious courses within the school programs, does that have an impact? Would that allow, or at least create an environment that's conducive for more extremism? Ron, can I start with you?
Yes, I think definitely that makes a big difference. I think we really have to look at how we teach religions and ethics in schools. I would really wish that that becomes a higher topic on the agenda of many governments, because we have to move past, like teaching this particular majority religion in school and then not talk about the others. I think we have to be more inclusive and give children a clear view about the differences of the religions and what they share in common, and also just general ethical values. I think that's very important, and it's something that we need to look at. It will help for sure.
Thank you. Iman?
I think religious education should be part and parcel of what schools should be promoting, but also delivering. Let's not forget that you have faith schools and different faith schools across different countries and different areas. And I think being able to, within these even faith school settings, to understand and learn about other religions is important. But education about other religions does not just happen at schools. I think the parents play a big role. And I think awareness raising about understanding other communities and building dialogue across other communities is important. So it does not just need to be around religions, because let's not forget there's as well a growing phenomena of people not having a religion. So that's as well another thing that I think we need to be aware of and cautious of. And lastly, I think one of the things I think we need to talk about when we talk about religious education, it's about, again, promoting the pluralistic society, the core values, the human rights values that we all strive for. And it's about really understanding the dynamics of other communities and understanding the cultural and religious nuances of other communities, because all communities and all faith communities come from super diverse backgrounds, and there's not one size fits all for a faith community. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think from today's webinar, we got also some very interesting idea for the follow-up of this project, like interesting question from Anders of creating the list of the attacked places of worship, then some guidelines for media, which would be also interesting, how they could report better on the attacks and incidents related to the worship places and religious communities. As well, from Georgios, the need to increase religious education in the public school, and also what Iman said in general, like in the society. So word of thanks goes to everybody who are participating in today's webinar. Feel free to visit the website sasce.eu for more information about this project. And if you want to report incidents, you can contact one of the consortium members if you belong to these communities, or you can go directly to the SASCE webpage and report the incidents or violation of religious freedom if you face with that. So thank you all for joining us today. And of course, special word of thanks to everybody who contributed to this webinar, to Mr. Ophir Revach, to Ms. Iman Abou Atta, and Mr. Ron Eichhorn, and as well Vanessa Beretta from our office, who is always helping us with the technical assistance.
Yeah, thank you
very much.
If you want to know more about this webinar series or about the EPRID platform, we kindly suggest keeping an eye on our website, eprid.eu, to subscribe to our mailing list, or to follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Thank you. I'm looking forward to meeting you next month.